Now, welcome back to the programme and into the second half of the show. Morris from the county has texted in. Damien, great programme this morning. What's the state of play with Eddie Mulligan? Is he to be taken off the ticket? Will he be replaced, or will there only be one general election candidate from Fianna Fáil? Just wondering. Morris, we don't know. As you heard on the news bulletin there with Emer, the Fianna Fáil leader has said that he's looking for an explanation from Eddie Mulligan. Eddie gave an explanation on this programme exclusively an hour ago, and I presume that's exactly what he will be saying to Fianna Fáil. So the decision will be made in due course. We're going to stay with politics for present. Fiachra O'Kelleher joins me now. Good morning, Fiachra.
This more good, Damien.
Diagwit, can I start to?
Oh my God, it's the Dominic to Unshanafubble Gart. A lot of people say Unshanafubble in the one word, but Unshanafubble is the way to say it in the Deise dialect. So
thank you very much. Brownie points for me anyway. I really wish I was fluent. I went to the Gaeltacht into Fiontraw in Kerry, and I had a Kerry Irish teacher, so I know the Ring dialect and the Kerry dialect is fairly similar.
My father is from Fiontraw, and indeed my next door neighbour in Ring, originally Murish Bolair, was also from West Kerry. So there's a big West Kerry connection in Ring.
I didn't know that. You're in here this morning to talk about facts and figures and numbers, and anybody interested in politics will be very interested in this, because we're going to go through some of the things. Firstly, you're not a candidate in the election.
There's candidates who are not running that are getting more publicity in Waterford than some of the candidates who are. But,
now, Eddie might still be running. And you did run in Udaros elections. You're a Labour Party member in the past, maybe at present, but we're not into a politics here. This is purely on a political scientist perspective. And you emailed me in last week, and the figures are fascinating, because ultimately we're talking about transfers in electoral areas. And thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Tell us about the last. There were elections on a Saturday in Waterford.
There was the Udaros and Gaeltacht elections, which are no more now, but two of them were held for the Ringall parish area only, so I won both of them, yeah. But I think I had 56% of the vote in the first count in one of them. That won't happen in any election that we're talking about here this morning. Now,
very interesting. Anybody that's living in Waterford City, County or in the constituency, have a listen to this. There's approximately 86,000 electors in Waterford. 54% of the voters live in the three Waterford City Metropolitan District areas. That includes Dunmore East and Tramore. Some 16% of voters are resident in the Portlaw Kilmacthomas electoral area, including Ballymac, Lemmy Bryan, Stradbally. So the percentage of the constituency's voters accounted for in the Dungarvan Lismore area combined is 30%. You've compiled these figures for us, Fiachra, and thank you for doing it. What does that mean, those three main points that I've just read out?
Well, in the county council, or the city and county council elections, there was 81,000 of an electorate, so it will be higher for this election, bearing in mind that there's a small number of voters around the Clonmel area in County Waterford that are actually in the Tipperary constituency. But in 2016, there was a 63.7% turnout of voters in Waterford. Now, the turnout in the local elections was lower than that. But the 63% turnout you had in 2016 was the lowest turnout in Waterford in the last 6 general elections. So if we take that figure of 63% and apply it to what is expected to be an electorate of about 86,000, the actual amount of people that will vote in the forthcoming general election in Waterford will be about 54,000.
54,000.
Yeah. Now, the way you get a quota from that is that you would take the number of seats plus 1, which would be 5, and you divide it into the 54,000 and add 1 to the final figure. So roughly, the quota at this time should be, now it all depends on turnout of course, but the quota this time should be around 10,800 votes. It was 10,300 and something I think the last time. So I also looked at elections going back over the last 10 elections, back to February of 1982. Obviously there was 40 seats filled, or 40 TDs elected since 1982 in Waterford, and only on 4 of those 40 occasions did someone who polled less than 11% of first preferences actually get elected. The lowest case would have been way back in 1992 when one candidate got 9% in the first count.
Who was that?
But they actually won the third seat, it was Martin Cullen. And in the last general election, the person who was beaten on the last count by over 500 votes started the count with, I think, 13.9% of the vote.
Okay. So again, you've put it very succinctly in the document you sent me. On a 63% turnout, potentially, of a 86,000 electorate in Waterford with a quota of 10,800, that would mean a first count or first preference total of 5,400 votes. Would be something that would be...
Yeah, and I suppose it's important to point out as well that in the last general election in Waterford, it took 9 counts to elect 4 TDs, and there was 12 candidates. I think there'll be about 13 or 14 this time, so there will be quite a number of counts. But if you also look at, it's usually the top 4 in the first count to get elected. 6 out of the last 10 times that happened in Waterford.
Okay.
But... for example, when we talked about the 11% or people getting less than that, in the 2011 election, there was actually 2 people who got 10 points something percent of the vote and got elected, whereas somebody who got 14% didn't. But generally speaking, if we talk about that quota of about 10,800 or so, I also looked at a statistic of... relating to this, as to how many people would have been elected with less than 11%, as we said, which was only 4 out of 40. So really, what you're talking about is a person would have to have about 5,000 or 6,000 first preferences in order to pick up support as the counts go on to be elected. So
to be in the running for a seat, effectively.
Generally speaking, you'd need about 5,500.
5,500
in the first count.
First count.
Yeah.
So anybody, if they're first-time electoral, if you're voting for the first time, that means number ones, because we have obviously a system of proportional representation. We'll talk about transfers in a minute, and that means that for any candidate to be in the running for a seat, based on previous data, you would have to have approximately 5,500 first preference votes. So that's what you're aiming for.
There is, and there's another factor involved in the Waterford constituency that is maybe in no way different than, for example, in Carlow Kilkenny. The general election won't happen in Carlow Kilkenny without somebody from Carlow being elected. That's generally a rule. Here in Waterford, if you want to take it in GA terms, people would be familiar with West Waterford and East Waterford. Roughly 2/3 of all the votes in this election, and in every election in Waterford, are in East Waterford, which includes the city, Tramore, Dunmore East, and about 1/3 of the vote would be in the west of the county, centred on Dungarvan and so on. And there's been 31 general elections in Waterford. In 1918, there was actually 2 constituencies, one for the city, one for the county. But only on one occasion since then has the Dáil set without somebody being in it who didn't have a West Waterford address. And that was only for 3 months in 1927. And you could argue that Kathleen Brew had a West Waterford address, but she actually didn't sit in the Dáil. She didn't take her seat. So since 1927, you've had people like, at the early days, there was John Butler, Sean Goulding, Michael Morrissey, Tom Kine, right up to modern day Jackie Fahey, Austin Deasy, John Deasy and so on. There tends to be somebody from West Waterford elected. That's also a generality. Now, it's only fair to say as well that other candidates would have connections obviously in West Waterford and the other way around as well. There's been more than one office of TDs operating in Dungarvan, for example, over the last 3 or 4 years. But generally speaking, that tends to happen as well.
Yeah, and you have obviously in terms of geographical boundaries and the way road networks have developed in the last years, somebody can get quite quickly from the city down to Dungarvan. So somebody in Portlaw, somebody in Kilmac that would be considered mid-Waterford, they could very easily say, I'm a West Waterford candidate in that respect.
Yeah, and another point to mention as well, I suppose, is that there haven't been any reliable opinion polls that I've seen anyway that deal with the local situation.
Correct.
There has been a national opinion poll, of course, published yesterday. It's debatable as to how much that will apply here in Waterford. There's different candidate personalities, local issues involved. But the one thing that we can compare is that if we take all the votes that were cast in the 2016 general election and compare them to the 2019 local election in Waterford, the boundaries are roughly the same. But for example, in 2016, Fine Gael in Waterford got 28.7%. That went down by about 3% in 2019 to 25% in the local elections. There's a big difference, of course, between local and general elections. There'll be different candidates and so on. Fianna Fáil in 2016 in Waterford got 20.5%, which is about roughly a quota. That went down slightly to 18.7% in the local
elections. And are these first preferences?
First preferences.
First preference.
Sinn Féin's vote in 2016 for the general election was 18.3%. That went down to 13.3% in 2019, but they did keep all their council seats significantly. Labour's vote in 2016 was very very low, really. That was 4.3%. That went up to 8.3% in the local elections 2019. The Greens in 2016 had 4.3% of first preferences in Waterford. That went up to 6% in the local elections. And People Before Profit, 3% in 2016. That went down to under 1% in the local elections. But it is important to point out, for example, that the Green vote may have been concentrated in the Waterford City Tramore end.
People Before Profit vote, or Green vote, yes.
Labour, for example, didn't run in 2 of the city wards in the last local elections, whereas they got 31% of the vote in the Lismore electoral area. But a significant figure, in 2016...
Yeah, this is very important. Others.
There was roughly a quota in 2016 between others or independent candidates, which was 19.9%. In the local elections, bearing in mind that 6 independent councillors got elected then, there was 28%, which was a rise of 8%. So there is a form there, if you like, for people who won't vote for parties. That remains to be seen whether that's borne out in a general election or not.
Yeah, because people have spoken about the amount of first preferences that are now up for grabs. So we now have John Deise not running. Paddy Coffey was a candidate the last time. He's not running. And John Halligan is not running. So approximately they're saying 22,000 first preferences are up for grabs. But it's too simplistic to say that in some respects, because you have obviously Fine Gael votes, John Deasy's vote, you've got Damien Gagan down there, you've got how things are going to play out during this campaign.
Yeah, but I would say as well that there's people dismiss maybe national opinion polls as they relate to local elections or local situations, but they're not entirely irrelevant.
I'd agree.
Now there would be situation after situation where some local candidates bucked the trend maybe compared to their parties nationally, but it would be a factor in some parties maybe running 2 candidates or 3 candidates or even 1 candidate.
Yes.
There would have been a time in this constituency, for example, where Fianna Fáil would have been looking for 3 seats. In the last general election, they just ran 1 candidate to win 1 seat. In the previous one to that, they ran 1 candidate and got no seat. So it's not a predictable science.
Not predictable. Yesterday's opinion poll, Fianna Fáil 32%, Fine Gael 20%, Sinn Féin 19%, Green Party 7%, Labour 4%, People Before Profit 2%, others at 15%. Like at the minute we've got 15 candidates declared at present, and we're going to be interviewing those as we go along throughout the campaign. Do you think that Waterford will be that American phrase, a bellwether constituency? It has done so in the past. It's reflected a lot in national polls.
Well, if you were to take that poll from yesterday, 32% for Fianna Fáil, if you argued that if each Fianna Fáil candidate got 16% each, they could win 2 seats. But it doesn't work out as neatly as that in a local situation. It would put pressure maybe on some of the other parties that have got much lower figures than what they might expect. But generally over the last 2 or 3 years, in every opinion poll, now British politics is very much different than here. People vote for parties more so than candidates. But the trends are usually fairly established and recognisable. But Fine Gael in Irish polls over the last 2 or 3 years have got about 28-30%. And that would be enough for them to certainly hold 1 seat in Waterford, whatever about challenging for 2.
Because the party vote, how to keep that party vote together. So if somebody's down in Knockanore and knows Damien Gagan or knows Mary Butler or whatever...
I suppose it depends on the candidate and then their organisation and so on and so forth,
That you're able to keep that vote, that second preference within the party.
Yeah.
That's the trick to get a potential second seat.
I'm not picking out one commentator above another now, but Harry McGee in the Irish Times seems to look at the same kind of figures. If you look at the constituency profiles they have on the Irish Times website at the moment, they tend to draw from the local elections compared to the general election before that and so on. Now, they are writing out some people that I think should be written in, and in other cases they're hamming up people that I don't necessarily think might be winning either. But in the Waterford constituency, they're taking it for granted that Fianna Fáil would win a seat. They're taking it for granted that Fine Gael would hold a seat, and they are factoring in geographical factors in that. They're also looking at Sinn Féin very favourably in Waterford, and the figures would tend to back that up. But then the 4th seat in Waterford, to answer your question, it will be very interesting because various parties and candidates can make a claim on it and point to some of the figures that we've alluded to here today. Figures from local elections, general trends and so on. So there will be, and of course, as you said in the beginning to introduce the item, the fact that 2 seats are going in Waterford means that there will be constituencies, for example, where there will be no change.
Yeah.
But there will be at least 2 new faces in Waterford, which does make it more interesting than other constituencies.
It certainly does. And anything can happen. This morning's paper, Eddie Mulligan, all that sort of thing, what Fianna Fáil are going to do with that. So this time, 24 hours, there may be changes in that. 24 hours ago, Joe Kelly was running, which again changes the dynamic on it.
Harold Wilson said that a week is a long time in politics.
Fiacre, thanks very much for joining us this morning. We might have you in again next week just to sort of gauge how things are going, and I appreciate you talking to us. Fiacre Keller, Ramila Margot's Longafol. Now, a lot of people texting in 083 3333 975, text or WhatsApp. You can call Laura on 051 846 123. Laura sent me a nice funny gift there saying I'd forgotten who she was, you know. She's funny, isn't she, Sinead?
She is. She's lovely. Be lost without her.
We would be lost without you. Laura. Is it Laura? I think it's Laura, yeah. Hi, Laura. Sinead Ahern, thanks very much for joining us.
No worries.
From our news and current affairs team. You've been out and about this weekend, the first of many I suppose, going out with candidates, seeing how things are on the doorstep. You're out with John Cummins at the weekend.
Yeah, so I went out on Thursday. It was before the weekend. What we've done is we've offered all candidates, given them the opportunity that we'll go out canvassing with them, join them on the trail, and we'll record and try and get a flavour of what it's actually like out on the doorsteps, what people are saying. We're trying to get to different areas of the county as well, and if possible, get them out of their own local area. So John Cummins, Fine Gael councillor, he was, this is his third time elected as a councillor for Fine Gael, 32, a teacher. He was only on your show last week, and he's based in Waterford City South. So I joined him on the trail in Tramore on Thursday, and it was towards the end of a yellow wind warning, so the conditions weren't ideal, but that is the very nature of going canvassing in January and February.
What was your feeling? Like, this is the first time we've had a general election in you or my lifetime in winter, effectively. Do you feel there's much engagement? We heard earlier on some candidates are not going to be knocking on doors after 7:30 at night because they feel they might be disturbing people. So we don't have this kind of summer feeling that people can be out and about until 10 o'clock at night. What was your feeling in terms of engagement so far?
There wasn't that much engagement. I think if people are at home during the day, they will answer the door. I don't know whether that's the case in the evening. I know if I'm at home kind of late afternoon, early evening, if it's dark, you're less likely to answer the door unless you know who's going to be there.
Yeah, like, are you going to stand at the door talking to somebody for 2 or 3 minutes if it's cold?
No. Now, it was a very windy day.
Yeah.
We thought there was, I'd say, maybe a handful of people that actually stopped and spoke to us.
Right.
Now, not all of them wanted to be recorded. We have to ask people's permission.
Of course.
And if they prefer not to be on the radio, that's no problem. I step back and let the candidate chat away.
Yeah, and we'll be hearing some of the clips on the bulletins now later on today at 12 and 1 o'clock.
We have a package going out at 1 o'clock, about a 4.5 minute package of hearing what the people on the doorstep had to say. Now, things that came up were the likes of health, the hospital, the airport came up, and the economy, the North Quays, and pensions came up as well. One man wasn't too happy that there wasn't an increase in the most recent budget. Also, I tweeted over the weekend, I've heard this from a number of different candidates, the pension age potentially being raised to 67. That's coming up already, maybe not on this particular... It didn't come up on this one, but I would imagine it would. There's a lot of people that are affected or that will be affected that are about to hit, that have to retire from work at a certain age, and yet they can't claim the state pension for another year or two. So it kind of leaves people in limbo, and it's something that does need to be looked at. Yeah, and again, these people are people that will more than likely get out and vote. The demographics show that those that are over 50, 60 years of age, they normally definitely do vote. They do. In general, we've got 15 candidates, like I said. We've got Mary Butler, we've got Ronan Cleary from Ain 2, David Cullinan, Sinn Féin, John Cummins, Fine Gael, Una Dunphy, People Before Profit, Michael Galway, Ray Nua, Damien Gagan, Fine Gael, Kieran Hartley, Independent, Joe Kelly, Independent, not running now, Eddie Mulligan, Fianna Fáil, Mark O'Connell, Green Party, Bernadette Phillips, Independent, John Pratt, Labour, Matt Shanahan, Independent, Lee Walsh, Independent. So there's 14 there at present. You were out and about with John, and a little incident. There was a little incident. As we were leaving one house, there was quite an angry little dog. There was no one in the house, so we just left the leaflet, and as we were turning to go, the dog bit John on the back of the leg. So it was he got a nasty little nick. Now, I'd say he's been left with a bruise, and I'd say it stung, but he did play it down, and you can hear it at the end of the clip. He I think it's part of the nature of the job when you're knocking on doors and when you're calling to people's houses, you are going to run into dogs.
Was the dog in the garden or?
Yeah, the dog was in the garden. The dog was in the driveway.
A little terrier, was it?
A little terrier, yes.
Gave him a little nick.
He did. But we'd have heard it on the local election campaign. Chat O'Neill last time around got a really nasty bite.
That's right.
And only that it was so close to the elections, he was ready to withdraw from the race, that it was such a bad bite he got. There was another Ger Barron, I think, had a run-in with a bull in one of the rural areas. So that is the nature. And I think all the candidates are trying really hard to call to as many houses as possible. But it is a really short campaign. If you think of it, 3 weeks' time, the count will be done at this stage.
It'll all be over, yeah. Mind yourself out there as well. Hope you don't get bitten yourself.
I'll try not to. I'm very aware of it now.
And hope John's leg, his ankle is okay. Sinead Ahern, thanks very much for joining us. Thank you very much. Just before we finish up there, I was asked about John Halligan's pension the other day, and I went through some of the facts and figures. I wasn't able to talk to John this morning. The Minister of State, a TD gets €96,189 every year annual salary, and then a Minister of State gets an extra €38,787. So working out a pension entitlement, you talk about the salary and then you calculate a pensions entitlement divided by 40, multiply it by the number of years that he or she may be a TD. So John was a TD for 9 years, so my understanding is that's an annual salary pension of $21,600. There's also a lump sum based on the amount of service, one-off personal pension lump sum of 3 times their pension. So in this case, if that is correct, he'd be a lump sum of $64,000. There's also a termination lump sum based on length of service. Only after these payments end do they receive a proper pension. Termination of $15,000. Minister of State's pension is worked out on the basis of pension for a minister and halved in such a way, so it looks possibly the way I've worked it out there, 35% of 38,000 and then half that is 5,700. So there's a number of different entitlements. As John said at the time, he will be letting us know in February how much exactly he's going to be getting in terms of his pension. A number of people had been on to us about that to ask us what exactly pension entitlements John Halligan will be getting. Stay with us. More of your texts and comments coming up. Also, we're going to be talking to the artistic directors and founders of the brilliant Rogue Gallery. Now, welcome back to the programme. Keep your texts and comments coming in. Jimmy has said, Damien, it's good that you have someone out on the candidates. The news team are out and about. Liz and all her team. As they always say, they all get support on the doorsteps. Damien, I have a sign on my gate, do not open guard dogs, and politicians still entered my property. Luckily I had visitors and the dogs were locked in. What would have happened if they got bit? Good question. I don't know. We'll find out in terms of liability. I don't think politicians would be... well, you wouldn't know in terms of claiming and stuff like that. Damien, the keyboard warriors are at it again. Keep an eye on that, says Richie in Abbeyside. Now, Janie Kavanagh, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. Very good. And Ania Viavudka.
Yes.
Not too bad.
Not too bad at all.
Not too bad. Where are you from originally?
Poland.
Poland. Very good. What part?
Southeast.
Southeast. Very good. I was there last year. How long are you in Ireland?
Almost 15 years.
Oh, brilliant. Are you enjoying it? Do you love it? It's your home now.
It's my home. It's my country.
And it's your artistic home as well. And Waterford's your artistic home. And Janie, you're artistic director and founder of the Rogue Gallery and Studio in the city, in Waterford. And Anya is as well with you. Tell us about the Rogue Gallery first for people that don't know it. What is the Rogue Gallery about?
So the Rogue Gallery and Studio is a not-for-profit volunteer-run gallery. So we cater to all forms of creativity, and so we're kind of very unique in that way. So like, say example, the second Monday of every month we have a comedy night where we ask locals that, may have not kind of done comedy before or anything to kind of get up on stage and, try and give it a go and stuff like that. And we do jazz nights in a similar kind of way, and Rogue Cabaret as well. And then alongside that we have our studios upstairs then. So in those we have an array of different people, such as classical painters, sculptors, printmakers, and painters and mixed media people like myself. And together we all we've created this lovely artistic community in the middle of the city, and we're there about 3 years now, and it's been great. We've never been so busy before,
Anya, how wonderful is it? How lovely is it?
It's amazing. It changed my life.
In what way?
It gave me a purpose and gave me a way to express myself artistically, and just, it's an amazing space.
What medium do you work in?
Everything, except for music. I don't do music.
Paint, sculpture, everything?
Yes, everything. A little bit of everything.
And this space is a creative hub.
Yes.
Oh, most definitely. We founded the ideals of the gallery to be more so about productivity and progress in your work and developing it and stuff like that. A renowned up-and-coming artist who's recently gotten a great use out of our space was Claire Scott, who is currently working in Garter Lane. But she came in last year and, we had a chat about it, and I was like, look, I love your work. I think it'd be a great thing for you to come in and do an exhibition. And she was like, yeah, I'd love to. And she was like, I'm really wanting to kind of develop and re-engage with my work. And I was like, well, look, I don't mind what you do as long as it's in line with the health and safety officer. And long story short, she created this amazing exhibition that was based on the Hollywood Beam movie Fantastic Voyage from 1960s. And it actually ended up winning her, or helped her on her way to the RHA, where she came third in that for
That's the Royal Hibernian Academy.
Yeah, yeah. So.
Big problems. You're in Michael Street, and the Michael Street development is planned to go ahead, and you might well have to close.
Yes, it's been really heartbreaking over the past 12 months here in the gallery. Last year in April, we got the first part of our eviction notice, which was just basically the receivership making it known that, they control the building and their rights to it and such, and that when we get part 2 of our eviction notice, which can come kind of any time, we would have 8 weeks to vacate the building. Now, I personally and the Rogue team have been working behind the scenes constantly trying to kind of figure out what's been going on and what we can do. And we launched our campaign there just in November, just gone, going rogue. Hashtag going rogue. And since then, we've kind of gotten a little bit of result in what we're looking at our timeline, which is looking to be late 2020.
Anya, how does this make you feel, the fact that you're going to be evicted and the place is going to close down?
I'm absolutely gutted, and especially that we just figured out how to do our thing, and we are so busy, and we have so many people coming in, and we are actually doing something for the community, and now it's been taken away from us, and without any further development or not securing another space for us and not giving us any answers.
The Waterford Council of Trade Unions has rowed in behind the campaign. Mm-hmm. It's asking all workers and its affiliated trade unions to support the Going Rogue campaign, calling on the City Council to ensure the Rogue Gallery can move into a new premises to continue its activities. What efforts have been made, or what is happening with a potential another place, or where are we at that?
So we have been kind of working with the council in trying to find a new home. There last year, once we were given the notice, we developed a huge architectural plan of all of O'Connell Street and listed all of the vacant buildings that were both owned by the council and all privately owned. And we flagged the Youth Reach building as maybe a promising building to go to. And unfortunately, this seems to be a no-go due to issues, once again, with the building becoming derelict and also the cost of rebuilding it and reshaping it. So at current, we are kind of looking into other buildings around the city. If anyone could even think or suggest, or if any landlords out there who own properties that are within the city centre would like to kind of flag in and give their opinions, that'd be great, because at this stage we're really looking for the community to kind of get behind us and to, put pressure on the council to show how important important our community building is, because, you know, the Rogue isn't just a building for artists or musicians or comedians. You know, we're a practice space that helps working artists develop their skills to build on to become working and commercial artists. And, you know, like you see a lot of the social welfare, they're after opening new artist payment to where you can come in and, you can get a certain amount from them to help you develop your course. However, if you don't read in the fine lines of it, you need to have an X amount of earnings on that before you can even get there. So these are things that we help emerging artists, traders, markers and the likes to actually help and produce and make way through.
Anya, how much of a loss to the city would it be if you didn't find a replacement?
Immense loss, I think. It's not only that there's artists coming in. Our doors are open to members of community who even are just friends or enthusiastic about arts, who are not creative themselves, but we give people an option to come in and get involved in something, you know. Mm-hmm. And we have had a great response, especially with the younger generation. Yeah. And I think it's going to be a sad day if we would have to close our door.
So if there's any landlords or relatives of landlords or anybody out there that's listening to this that says, OK, there is a location that I can maybe make available, possibly a minimal fee, maybe working with the council in some way, like the council obviously will try and support you as well. But surely there has to be a premises out there. Surely.
Well, there is loads of premises out there. There's plenty of vacant buildings within this town, but it's actually grabbing the fees together to rebuild and rescape them that is becoming the issue for it. As you know yourself, there's plenty of vacant buildings along the cultural quarter, along the middle of the town. I mean, every second building is just either about to close or has been closed for over 6 months to a year, and especially on Michael Street alone, there's the repair shop that's just after closing down now. There's the bookshop just above, just by Shoe Rack there. There's Martin Jewellers as well that had to close down just before Christmas. And, it's just getting harder and harder for people to find space.
Yeah, does it have to be in the city centre? I suppose it's better that it is, Anya.
I think it's better for what we are doing.
Of course.
It's more accessible and people can come in off the street. Like even if we have an exhibition open, it's easier for people to just stroll in off the street, instead of going and looking for us deliberately.
Yeah, it seems like an obvious situation that this cultural quarter, as it's supposed to be down in O'Connell Street, that some sort of a place down there would work. But as you say, it hasn't yet developed.
Yeah, it hasn't materialised as of yet,
yeah.
And it's an unfortunate thing that in relation to the cultural quarter and, how they're beginning to develop it and stuff, that there's no buildings down there for us currently, it's just apparently working out at too much of a cost to put us down there.
If anybody has any, get in touch with you through the Rogue Gallery. Yes, on please. Facebook, or anybody has any contacts, call in here. We'll give them your number privately, and just contact the Rogue Gallery. Listen, Janie, thanks very much. I hope you get something sorted, really do. Anya, thank you very much. Hope you get something sorted. And listen, keep in touch with us, will you please?
We will do, of course.
Thank you very much. Thank you
for listening.
Cheers.
Not at all, thank you. Coming up, Club Deise. Now, welcome back, gentlemen. How are you getting on? Good. Thanks very much. Tom Corcoran, chairperson of Club Deise. How are you getting on?
Getting on fine, Damien.
Thanks, good. Liam Supale, deal with, membership committee, and we've got Tom Shanahan, well known in the east and the west and all over. Fair play to you. Tom Corcoran, tell us, for people that don't know, what is Club Deise?
Well, Club Deise is the official supporters club of the GA in County Waterford. And we raise funds. We have 4 different methods of raising funds. This year we have the membership, which we're dealing with here today. We have a corporate section. We have we're doing a raffle then with the squads, the youngsters, the under 14s, the under 15s, and the under 16s. And we have an event section as well. So there are sort of 4 things going on. I suppose we're promoting membership at the moment because it's giving you a bit of a early cash flow, and the tickets will do that later as well. Over the last couple of weeks, it's only the middle of January, and we've still spent 20,000.
Wow.
On it has gone to the underage, it has gone to the under 17s, it has gone to the under 20s. We're supporting the Waterford football team, their nutritional programme, and of course the big one is to come yet, the senior hurling.
Liam, it's no matter how much money you raise, you could always raise more. There's a lot of pressure on people to do it.
There is, of course, but again, if we look at what the GA has contributed to County Waterford and to the Deise, it's important that we work together and support them. Now, I suppose we all speak about the names on the pitch and the great personalities and the great games, but it's about a lot more than that, because you've got to take into the fact that the young people that go out on a Saturday practising in winter and summer, that may never make the big time, but we support Deise, Club Deise, so as that they may get that opportunity. They may never see the limelight, but our support and the work that's being done, and this support from this committee will help promote that and give these young people a chance, which may take them various different avenues, but we're there to support.
Tom Shanahan, it's vital for success within Waterford, for every county to have a supporters club that is active, and there's so many people that are involved, we can't name them all, but it's so vital.
Yeah, well, in the west of the county, as is evident here with the lads here, Club Deise is fairly strong and vibrant. But we have a bit of a problem in the east, and the city. And in my opinion, we are starting to stagnate, and due to apathy probably, and the lack of numbers. So in order to redress that imbalance, we're in the process of setting up a working group. And probably their brief will be to implement the necessary structures to streamline and revitalise Club Deise in the east and the city. And probably part of that process will be to set up an eastern branch of Club Deise in order to optimise our fundraising capabilities. Now, that's in its infancy at the moment. From next week onwards, we'll be working strongly to get Club Deise in the east up and running.
Well, the very best of luck with that, and if there's anything we can do to help, because it is so important for so many different ages all over the spectrum. Tom?
Yeah. We're working with the squads. We're working from under 14 right up to the senior hurlers and the senior footballers, and there's a big spend on the senior hurlers, as because you would expect that they will go on, and hopefully they will this year.
And for people that don't know it, you might have a little bit of strength and conditioning for 14, 15-year-olds. Again, they're just doing very, very specific exercises, nothing going to do with weights. This all costs money. If you have to hire a gym for an hour in Carriganore or anywhere else, it costs money.
Just on that point again, Damien, put things in context.
Yeah.
Remember, we played Tipperary last year. Now, we were looking at a team who were funded to the tune of 1.7 million. Tipperary, I'm speaking about. Whereas in our case, our funding was less than a quarter of that. And that's where we're at. And we need money to get to that level, whether we like it or not. We've got to get the necessary finances in place. Now, we can't aspire to that kind of money, but we've got to maximise what we can from the county.
One of the simple things you're doing is the Club Deise draw, and this is for a mascot for the home matches for the senior hurling games. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And you have a bag here.
The league games.
A bag here with all memberships so far.
That's right, yeah.
So I'm going to put my hand in here now and I'm going to pick somebody out.
We'll draw a reserve as well, but we won't announce the reserve.
We won't announce the reserve. OK, so I have Thomas Cowman from Old Waterford Road, Tramore, and the nominated mascot is J.J. Flanagan. And the seller is Patrice Flanagan. I'll give you that there. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So
yes.
The nominated mascot is J.J. Flanagan.
Flanagan.
So he's a young chap, we would presume, who he will be the mascot at the game on coming Sunday. Is that it, Liam?
That's it.
This is something that you started. It's a lovely idea. It catches the imagination. It's like anything, thinking outside the box.
Well, I suppose if you look at any of the games, any place in County Waterford at any weekend, you see the appeal is across a wide range of age groups, from 9 to 90, shall we say. But the package that's been put together this year by Club Deise involves this, what we've done this morning on this draw, but it also involves that people can join and become members for a €30 fee, shall we say.
Okay, €30. That's not bad.
Not bad. They come from 30 membership. But then what it does, it gives people, they get texts before the matches of who and of the line-out for the various different games, hurling and football. They also enter a draw for match tickets for Munton Championship games and All-Ireland qualifiers up to but not including the All-Ireland. They get a car sticker on the Club Deise 2020 and also they're entered for a draw, an apartment holiday for 1 week in Lanzarote, and they also have a B&B midweek for 2 in the Flynn group hotels, as well as discounts in a number of stores around the county. So that package has been put together to attract people in. And if you avail of the discounts, you'll get your €30 back, literally.
Yeah, you will, yeah. So not only, you're putting your money where your mouth is, you're supporting your county, there are benefits from it as well. I'll just pick out a reserve, as you say, there as well. I won't read it out there now. Let's just say it's from... Okay, I'll just read it. Yeah, I'll just give you that there now.
Since Club Deise was re-established, Club Deise is there for the past 28 years, but was re-established about 4 years ago. And in that period of time, we've raised over $500,000.
$500,000?
And put that towards training. And I suppose there is a kind of a culture now, and there's nothing wrong with it, that if teams want something, they say, well, Club Deise will pay for that. But and that's grand, that's what we're there for. But Club Deise can't pay if the money doesn't keep coming in.
Yeah.
So this is why we're so anxious to promote what we do.
How many members would you like to have? How many approximate members did Club Deise have last year, Tom?
Well, I'd say Tom would be more off here with.
We had around 700 last year. Okay. We started aiming to go to 1,000 this year. But compare that with Tipperary, then they have 3,000.
Wow. So we can get to 1,000 if you can. Yeah. That's a big ask though as well, because you're looking at effectively a third of an increase.
And it's something you have to sell one-to-one, and we need people across the county as well, even if there's anyone out there who would like to volunteer to sell a few memberships. We'd love that, because you have to get to the different areas, the different townslands, so more volunteers I think is what we need.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to have you on the programme, to help promote that, because particularly in the East, as you say, Tom, there are certain pockets that are very good. Certain people over the years are very adamant about selling, but then there's other areas that can fall by the wayside. That's and just to regenerate them again.
And people don't realise the knock-on effects of a winning team at any sport.
Yeah.
To a county, like seemingly the effects of the Limerick team winning had very beneficial effects on the economy and so on. Now, I can't go into to why that happens, but it does happen.
Well, it gives a boost to the county. It gives a feel-good factor, and sport is one of those things, Liam, that you wouldn't be doing it if you didn't really feel for this.
No, true, Damien. The other side of it is that we have to think and understand that every weekend there are lots of people who go out supporting the GA games and again, maybe get very little out of it, but are committed to do that. So I suppose what we're doing is trying to support that and tap into that, so as that the family would get bigger, and all the teams working together will help promote the various different sports, Tavish and GA and so but Lorga.
And if there's anybody texting in now, and Keyboard Warrior has given out about the hurlers during the summer, they should put their money where their mouth is now, give the €30, support Club Deise, and at least make an effort to try and improve the facilities and all the training.
That's right, Jimmy. Let's say we get to a Munster final, 20,000 people after travelling up from Waterford to go to a Munster final. They should think about what it took to get that team to the Munster final. The financial aspect.
And all the other teams, as you say, the footballers, the minors, everybody.
And we will be selling membership at Welsh Park on Sunday, so if anyone would like to join, we'll be around there.
Congratulations and the very best of luck to you. Anybody wants to contact you, there's a Facebook page, there's a website. Literally just type in Club Deise. Contact any of the GA club members as well, any committee members, they'll have contacts as well.
That's right.
And specifically for the East as well in the city to try and push that as much as possible. The two Toms and Liam, thanks very much for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Liam, or Damien, for having us on.
No problem. And we'll have you in again. We'll get the next mascot going as well.
Hopefully when we get the East up and running, maybe we can come back to it with more detail.
You're more than welcome. More than welcome.
Okay.
Gentlemen,
Thanks,
thank you very much.
Thanks, Damien.
Now, thank you everybody for texting all your comments this morning. People texting in about could be a financial director appointed for Waterford GA. Again, that's another aspect, another thing to talk about. All money gratefully accepted, as they say, in terms of Club Deise. Thanks to the gentlemen for coming in. Thanks to our other texters. People are texting in the Rogue Gallery. Surely somebody somewhere can do something for them. That's some Roger, artist in the city. You've heard a lot of politics this morning. We'll have a lot more besides tomorrow. Jeff is up next. Take care. Have a lovely day.